Well, I am Eric Ferguson, fergusonforhouse.com, and if you know me, it's probably because I was chair of the Senate District for 3 terms. And if you don't know me, you're very comfortably in the majority because most people have not a clue who the chairs are, and I'm justifiably very modest about that. So while I am proud of what I've done as chair, I'm running on what I'm proposing to do if I'm elected. Big problems require big ideas, and I'm offering some big ideas. For example, if we're going to allow renewable sources of energy to replace fossil fuels, we have to deal with the problem of renewables not providing base load power. If you want more fuel from your fossil fuels, you can shovel more coal in the furnace as you need to, but you can't make the wind blow or the sun shine at the times that you need it. They will blow and shine when we don't need the power and not the other way around. We need a means of energy storage. And probably we're going to have battery technology to do this eventually, but global warming isn't waiting for eventually. I'm proposing that we invest in an existing technology called pumped hydro. So when power is produced when we don't need it, rather than just disconnecting the solar cells from the grid, we use the power to push water up to a reservoir, and then when we need to turn it back into electricity, we release the water and it runs over hydro turbines to recreate the electricity. The core issue with our chronic housing shortages is that we don't have enough space for as many people as want to live here. We just need more space to build housing. And something that we forget about is that everywhere the freeways are, those used to be neighborhoods. The construction of the freeways tore out neighborhoods, tore out a lot of housing. And for example, Minneapolis right now is having trouble housing a bit over 400,000 people. At its peak, it had over 500,000 people. That was in 1950, and that was before the freeways were built. I'm proposing that we cover the freeways. Anywhere the freeways are built in trenches, we can put a roof over them, and that turns them into tunnels, and then we can build on the roofs, and we recreate some of the housing that was lost. I have a free college plan I call Commit to Minnesota to solve the problems of both students getting their educations and leaving the state, or maybe skipping education altogether because they're afraid of the debt post-secondary education require them to take on, or their debt affects everything that they do in life. With Commit to Minnesota, college or any post-secondary education will be free if students commit to living in Minnesota for 5 years after they leave school. So in 5 years, they'll have gotten their lives in order and they'll want to stay here. Well, when I walk into the legislature, I'm going to be new freshman legislator walking in thinking I know everything. So after the legislators give me a reality beatdown, I am going to be aware that I would love to push my big ideas through right away, but that it's going to take time to explain them, to build support, and I would like to get something passed right away. And there's actually a very local problem I think is very solvable. Part of Richfield is underneath the airport flightways, and it's supposed to be a temporary change, and maybe it only affects a small part of the city, but it's affecting it a lot. As somebody who lived underneath airport noise when I lived by Boston Park, wow, am I aware of how much certain times of day you're not going to be able to have a phone call or an outdoor conversation. So I was helped a lot by just noise mitigation. Better windows and air conditioner basically is what it took, and it can make a very big difference. So for those few hundred folks maybe in Richfield, there's a chance to make a big difference. Noise mitigation's not that freaking expensive. We can afford that little bit of money to make their lives tolerable. So I think that would be the first thing I would take up. It's something that's kind of small, and I hope we can get it done right away.
In recent years, there have been many examples of shortages in public health care and crisis services. The measles outbreak, the opioid crisis, and increasing traffic in emergency rooms indicate a need for change on these issues. What proposals do you have for addressing healthcare needs and crisis services?
Well, I think our core problem is we have fundamentally a private health insurance system, and there really isn't any use at all for private health insurance companies. Now, just in the short term, just to get people access to care, I like of Governor Walz's One Care program. Governor Dayton was proposing letting anybody all buy into Minnesota Care, so kind of a public option. And we can do that as a state without having to worry about what happens at the federal level, where they kill off Obamacare or single payer happens. We'll still be protected. And long term, I would like to get to something like John Marty's Minnesota Health Plan. I like basically all of it, except the timing. I think it's too abrupt. If we were to try to make a quick jump from where we are to where I want to be, we're going to get punished at the ballot box. People who are somewhat reasonably satisfied with their health insurance really hate it when political parties start touching health care. This is why Republicans got punished in 2018. We got punished in 2010 over Obamacare, even though that was kind of mild and incremental, but that's still why we got hit pretty hard with that. So we have to get to a single payer plan. We have to think really carefully about the roadmap and try and do it more gradually. And then we can talk about the better aspects, like something I like about John Marty's plan is it includes dental and vision, and it's weird with health insurance. It's like your body stops at your neck. Nothing, nothing in your head counts. It's all separate. And I see, when I think about the shortages of home health care workers, I see that kind of dovetailing with another problem, which is when people's jobs disappear to automation or move away, and those jobs just don't exist where they are anymore. We have retraining programs, and they pretty much never have worked. And the basic thing is, after people's jobs are gone, we retrain them for a new job that is also not where they happen to live. The need for home health care workers is everywhere. There's literally nowhere in the state we can't say there are jobs here. So I think that's one place we direct our training program to, is home health care, and we're going to need other medical professions too. There's always spot shortages, especially when you get outside the metro area with nurses and nurses' assistants. And so I think that's where our retraining programs need to be redirected. With the measles outbreak, I get pretty angry at the anti-vaxxers. That's why we have the measles outbreaks. It's not because our vaccines don't work. It's not because people can't get them. It's because we've got this disinformation campaigns from anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorists convincing people that vaccines are dangerous. And this is all nonsense. Thank you. And thank you, Mom. I don't know what else. Okay, now let me get back on my rant. We have to counter the anti-vaccine propaganda campaigns. We have to educate people about this. All right, now I'm done.
Affordable housing and public housing access are big issues right now, especially with the growing homelessness crisis. How do you plan to address this?
Well, our problem is we simply don't have enough space to build all the housing that we need. And I'm sure when I said cover the freeways, a lot of you were understandably thinking, that guy's loopy. That's okay. It's maybe not something you thought about before, but I'm not the only one to come up with this idea. Millennium Park in Chicago and a chunk of Dallas are smaller scale projects, like what I'm talking about, built over a railroad yard and a freeway, respectively. There have been plans in the Rondo neighborhood for a land bridge, they call it, to try to reconnect some of the Rondo neighborhood. Edina's talked about this over a part of Highway 100. So I'm talking about things that are doable, but just doing it on a lot bigger scale. And if you've ever been, have you ever been on top of the highway, the Hiawatha Avenue tunnel? Think about on top. The roof of it is part of Minnehaha Park. Hiawatha Avenue used to just divide Minnehaha Park into Minnehaha Park and this chunk over there that we couldn't use for anything. But with a roof on top of part of Hiawatha Avenue, Minnehaha Park is a lot bigger. You go on top, it's like any road or any bike path, depending upon how you go there. This can work, and we can make this work and replace a lot of the housing that was lost decades ago when neighborhoods got torn apart. And once we put up the roofs, we can build what we want. We want to put up affordable housing, that becomes a lot more of an option because we've got land to build on. And I'm thinking that we need to stop working around the edges with small solutions and go back to the idea that the government will just build affordable housing. We got away from this because there were the big public housing projects in the 60s and early 70s that had their problems, and so now the government just doesn't do that at all. And I think it's federal law that it can't. I'm not sure what we can do. But what we can do, we have to change the law. Build housing that we need, even if it's not profitable for the private developers. The private developers are never going to want to take on affordable housing. It's either not profitable or not as profitable as housing for the middle class or the upper class. So we're going to have to think big and just build a lot more of it.
Education in Minnesota has been in the news about both funding and access for all communities. What will you do to strengthen Minnesota schools?
Well, my bit of rhetoric. I wish I could say I had some brand new big idea that I've never heard of before for this, but we've actually got an already existing really big idea. Public education was a big, successful idea that you could take everybody, we're going to educate all of them, and it doesn't matter if anybody's able to pay, and it'll be run by their local government, and it'll be somewhere close enough that they can go. That was a revolutionary idea when it came out. And I think we kind of need to get back to that. We've gotten away from it. We're kind of nickel and diming our schools. We're always worried we're going to spend $10 somewhere that we didn't need to. And what happens if we overfund our schools? Will the textbooks be too new? Are the roofs not going to leak enough? What does overspending on school look like? I honestly would have no idea. So at a state level, I don't see our role as telling people at the local level how to deal with things. Parents and teachers and administrators and local school boards know the problems that they're dealing with on the ground. We need to be willing to give them more resources. So, sorry Republicans, I want to spend even more on public education. And probably not surprising, I want to get back to talking about Commit to Minnesota. Now that's dealing with post-secondary education, but I want to take money out of the equation of whether people can pursue some sort of post-secondary education. Because in the modern economy, a high school education just isn't going to cut it. You're going to be almost guaranteed to spend your life as a low-skilled worker, moving job to job, and hoping for minimum wage increases, because that might be the only increase you get. And it doesn't have to be that way. And if more people are going to school, great. I don't mind expanding our college campuses. That doesn't sound like that terrible of a thing to have to do to me. So we can get more people educated. And by keeping them, making them stay in the state 5 years to make it 3, they will stay here. And they will make more money from their educations, they'll pay more in taxes thanks to their higher incomes, and they'll be paying it in Minnesota. So I think we have to get over our unwillingness to spend money. That's at the core of the issue. Well, I haven't talked about myself much because I'm running on what I'm going to do, but the fact is, I am kind of proud of what I did when I was a district chair. Not winning general elections because, honestly, I could have been just barely good enough to avoid getting kicked out of the job, and I still would have won the local elections. But there was never a guarantee that we're going to get the kind of high turnout that the DFL counts on from here to win statewide elections. There was never a guarantee that we were going to get a high turnout of DFL votes. But while I was chair, this district was consistently towards the top in total voter turnout, in the percent of DFL votes, in the number of DFL votes. There was never a guarantee we were going to have a strong local party with lots of participation that kept busy, kept doing things, kept laying the groundwork, and we did that. When campaigns start up at campaign season, they don't have to start from scratch around here because of all the work that we've already done. So, yeah, I'm kind of proud of that. I'm not claiming all the credit, because Nia was my vice chair that whole time. And I know a bunch of you in this room, you helped out the phone banks and the door knocks, or maybe you helped organize the prior forums, or you helped with your precinct caucuses and so on. I thank you for that. You all get to claim credit for how well this district has been doing. I'm just not shying away from claiming my share of credit. And doing that, it's a lot of organizing, It's a lot of diplomacy because you have to get people to do stuff they haven't done before, to do something and then do maybe one more thing. You have to get people to work together when they don't necessarily like each other, when they don't see eye to eye. But we have to get everybody pulling in the same direction. And an effective chair is good at that. And I was an effective chair. I was good at that. And those are exactly the skills that are going to translate over to being a good legislator. I mean, yeah, maybe I could sit down and write some legislation. That would actually be a good thing. But the key thing is that relationships are face-to-face. Just like getting people in the room for a precinct caucus a little bit is face-to-face. You have to develop relationships. You have to be able to be diplomatic, even if maybe you have to work with the other party if we're in the minority. And I can do that. And I've shown I have those skills that makes me our best shot at going to the legislature and turning our big ideas into reality. So now to completely pivot to an issue I got 30 seconds to talk about something else I'm passionate about. I want to have liability insurance for guns. You have to have liability insurance to own a car. And if you drive without insurance, that's a crime. The police will stop you and they don't have to wait for you to crash into somebody. They can just stop you for that. Gun owners should have to carry liability insurance too, so when Mr. Irresponsible gun owner cleans his loaded pistol, shoots it through the wall into your wall and injures you, you don't have to just hope that he's got the money to cover it. So this is the part of the evening where we try to summarize 2 hours in a few seconds for folks whose attention spans have been stretched to the maximum. I can see your body language. Thank you for listening so far. Thank you especially if you're still listening and if you're just waiting for the sound of my voice to stop so you can politely get up and go home. I do understand. A very smart thing I once heard said was, don't tell me what you believe in. Tell me what you plan to do and I'll tell you what you believe in. So take a look at fergusonforhouse.com and my YouTube channel, see what I propose to do, and then you can tell me what I believe in. So the last thing I'll leave you with is a challenge. Look at my platform, and if you can find a platform that's more forward-thinking and creative, good luck to you, because I don't think you will. So please support me for the DFL endorsement, and thank you.